just go do it. Do it. Like if it's something that you have already like thought about, you want to just try it, do it.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Homework Help Show Student Influencers Podcast. I'm your host, Leslie, and today we are here with Danielle. Danielle, it's lovely to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much, Leslie. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So just to get started, we like to do a little bit of kind of get to know you questions. So if you could start off, where were you born and raised, and where are you living now?
Sure. So I was born in West Covina, California, only born there. And I actually was raised in the early part of my childhood from like a baby to like about 6-7 years old. I grew up in Pomona, California. And then after my parents split up and my mom remarried, I moved around 7-8 years old to Alta Loma, California, which is the suburbs of the San Bernardino County area. And I pretty much grew up there, went to elementary, junior high, and high school in Alta Loma, California.
Nice. So California born and raised.
Yep. I'm a Cali girl.
And that's where you are now, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So I actually moved out of Alta Loma and I'm more coastal. I live in Orange County now by the beach.
Yeah, that sounds real. Coming from us where we're in Canada, that sounds really nice right about now because we just got a ton of snow.
Definitely.
And what college, university, what did you do for school and what did you study?
Yeah, sure. So I went to Cal State San Bernardino for my undergrad, and that, like I said, Cal State San Bernardino, it's a CSU, and I also, after I received a bachelor's in psychology and a minor in mass communication, from there I went to pursue another degree, a master's in journalism, which I actually, unfortunately, did not complete due to the extensive driving that I was doing. And then also, it was something that I feel like I wasn't relating to my peers or connecting with the professors. So I did not pursue that program. And then I decided to go into a different program after that. I had to pass like my CBES. So that's basically for liberal arts majors. I wanted to get into school counseling. And so I actually got into a private university, University of La Verne. And I literally was 2 years into the program to finish my school counseling. And then life, as you know, or, you know, I'm sure many listeners can just relate, life happens. And so I was 3 courses away from getting my master's in school counseling. And yeah, so I have a lot of education under my belt, a lot of studying, a lot of late nights, a lot of cramming, and a lot of papers. I don't even, like, looking back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I did it.
Yeah, because it sounds like because it sounds like you tried a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And just kind of like put your toes in a bunch of different areas, which can be a lot of work.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
And what are you doing now? You're in real estate now, right?
Yeah. So, as I just said, I went through those different career options, and now I'm actually in real estate, not even pursuing the degrees. However, I absolutely, I'm very fortunate to have had those experiences. But yeah, I'm doing real estate now. I love it. I really enjoy, working as a realtor and the opportunities and just meeting a lot of amazing people in doing so.
Awesome. So what made you decide, like after all of those different directions that you kind of went, what made you decide to go into real estate after all that?
Yeah, well, I'll try to make the long story really short. So it was basically back in 2015, 2016 is when I had my last position in what I would say is like the educational field. And I had a really bad experience at that position. from the program director to even like the peers that I worked with, they just weren't, I don't want to go into further detail, but it just wasn't a great experience. And then I decided, you know what, I need to pursue a different career option, and then maybe something that I didn't even go to school for. And at the time, I had a friend that was in the mortgage industry, which is we're like very tied in together as far as real estate. And I decided, okay, I'm going to ask my friend to give me some more information about what real estate is. I've always had an interest in it, but I never like pursued it. So I asked him. He basically introduced me to a few different companies, and I pretty much decided, okay, Danielle, if you're going to pursue a completely different career, you actually don't have to invest too much as far as like financially, you could get started right away. It's more of just putting yourself out there and networking. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to really just immerse myself in this field, learn as much as I can, and then along the way, take the courses that I need to become a real estate agent, and just, add to my tool belt and then, get licensed and, go from there. And that's what I did.
Right. Because also like thinking about the other things that you were talking about studying, like a lot of those things I feel like can really help you with real estate too, like communication and stuff. Obviously that's a big thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so many things that, like I said early on, I'm very fortunate, and I love the experience that I did have, going to college, having to study, having to learn how to balance my time, how to be organized. I'm like OCD when it comes to being organized. And yeah, absolutely. Communication is huge. Speaking to people in a professional manner, and also writing. There's a lot of, it's really interesting that in real estate, you do not need a like high school diploma.
Oh,
You don't
really?
need it. No, yeah. Well, at least in California, I can't speak for the other states, but there are a lot of real estate agents that maybe just only have a high school background, and they don't have higher education. And so it's very interesting that like there's a lot of people out there making a lot of money with limited education. And so, yeah, but there are a good majority of us that do have it. But yeah, it's just the whole reason why I bring it up is because all the things that I did learn in higher education, I definitely implement it into what I'm doing now.
Yeah. So, I mean, it definitely, like, it's not required, but it gave you a really big advantage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because with real estate, you just need the license, right?
Yeah. That's all you need in California. And I think across, the US, you just need 3 courses, and it usually takes about like 3 months. And then you just study for the state license exam.
So that's pretty quick process too.
Yeah. You could definitely get your license within a matter of, I'd say like 6 months is like the long, like, if you're just taking your time. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Well, that's pretty cool. That I think it's pretty similar in Canada from what I know, and here in Ontario anyway. So
yeah,
it's probably a pretty kind of universal system, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
So for students who are kind of thinking, hey, maybe I want a career in real estate, what kind of tips or advice would you give to someone like thinking about that?
Yeah. So a career in real estate is definitely absolutely amazing and wonderful. There's a lot of benefits to it. But the number one thing that I would say, if someone is even thinking about pursuing a career in real estate, is ask yourself why. Like, what is your why? And I would actually go further and say that with any career, especially if it's going to be a sales career or for entrepreneurs, is why is this important to you? Because that plays a huge role in your day-to-day. And it also, like, when you have your like down moments, your setbacks, or when you're feeling like kind of defeated, you need to like think back of, okay, what's your why? And then you got to like go for it. So that would be like my number one tip is ask yourself why is, what's your why and why do you want to pursue a career in real estate? Number two, I would research like your local top realtors in the area. Check out what they're doing. Like, you could do a simple Google search or, whatever browser or, URL that you use to search. And just check them out, look at their website, check out if they have like social media handles, check out, if they're, they do YouTube or podcasts, and just see like, how do they immerse themselves in the community? And, maybe you can find a few different ones and see, who do you relate to? Are there some that really inspire you, and kind of just see what they're doing, follow them for a while. And then after you do those two things, asking yourself why, doing the research of other realtors in the community, I would then assume that you're probably thinking like, okay, this is a career I want to do. So then obviously you're going to go ahead and start your courses. My advice as far as courses is you could do the courses online. There's plenty of online courses that you could take. And then if you don't want to do online and you're more of an in-person learner, there's a lot of brokers that actually offer classes in person. And then also some of those online online educators, they sometimes have in person as well.
Like seminars?
So, and then also with the brokers, also with the brokers who do offer it, sometimes there's an advantage where if you hang your license, that's what they call it, you hang your license with them, then they'll reimburse you the money that you paid up front after you close your first deal. So that's like an incentive.
Yeah.
So those are just two ways. Yeah. And then the fourth and last thing that I would say is, okay, you're taking your classes, you're super excited about real estate. Number 4, read a bunch of books like about sales. I can send you, Leslie, after this, a link or like all the books and podcasts that I would recommend. I just didn't write them down right now.
Perfect.
And then like research like on YouTube, and again, just research on Instagram. And pretty much immerse yourself and try to learn as much about what others are doing, and then kind of understand or figure out what relates to you. Like, are you going to be that cold caller, calling, or are you going to be the person knocking on doors? Like, are you in person, or are you the social media person that's like, behind the scenes, like doing a lot of stuff on social media? So there's so many different ways that people do real estate, and I didn't even get into it, but there's also like the people who do flips, that those are like looking for distressed properties, or if you're into like luxury. So I could go on and on about this, but there's a lot of different avenues, and it's more of just what works for you, what excites you, and what you can see yourself doing day to day.
Right, definitely. And like, I think that's a lot of really good points in there too, because with any career, you have to do your research and you have to know that it's something that you really want to do, because if you're going to form the rest of your life around it, that's a big decision, right? And you can't just be like, well, I'm going to go into real estate because I can start really quick and make a lot of money. And it's like, but are you going to like it?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. Yeah. There's a lot, unfortunately, in real estate, we see a lot of people fail because they didn't plan out, they didn't do the research, or that why isn't strong enough.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. And basically, when you're in real estate, you're basically an entrepreneur, and you're running your own business. And I know like we'll talk about like social media and stuff in a minute, but do you have any other advice that's kind of more for entrepreneurs in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're definitely right about, real estate being an entrepreneur. So the advice that I would say for someone who, is looking to become an entrepreneur, or people that already are, or like on the brinks of it, you have to be willing to take risks, like absolutely. And then you also have to be willing to sacrifice your time. And I would say if those two questions, if those aren't something that you're comfortable with, then maybe keep searching, or, keep searching for that thing that will make you want to be willing to do those things. Because any entrepreneur that I've ever met, or any realtor that is really successful, they were willing to take risks, calculated risks, of course, and they sacrifice a lot of their time. And I will be completely transparent. I don't have I don't have friends. I'm just kidding. I don't have friends that I actually really, that I'm talking to on the daily. Of course, I have my friends, that I talk to occasionally, once in, here and there. But I don't have someone that I'm constantly, hey girl, or hey, what's going on? Or, my friends really is my family. I hang out with my boyfriend, my mom, and my sister. And that's really it. I talk to my dad and my mom a lot, and my boyfriend. Those are my best friends. And that's just because, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's being an entrepreneur is that's kind of a big, the big thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. You're just focused on, your career and building your brand. That's really your baby. It's your baby.
Mm-hmm.
You have to nurture it. You have to grow it. You put so much time and energy in it. And, the more time and energy you put into it, the more amazing and beautiful it will grow. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it does. It takes a lot of sacrifice, especially when you're starting out and you're doing everything by yourself and for yourself. And you have to know that going in that, okay, I'm going to have to make some sacrifices. This is going to become my life. But if you're really passionate about it, then you don't really mind putting that hustle in.
Absolutely. There you go. You nailed it again. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not an entrepreneur, but that's what I've gathered from talking to a lot of entrepreneurs.
Exactly. Yeah. And it almost goes with that quote, if you love something, if you choose a career or something that you're passionate about, it's almost like you don't really work, because you're so passionate about it. And there is one thing that I did write down. If it's something that keeps you up at night, or that you obsess about, or you wake up and you're thinking about it, and you're thinking about it before you go to sleep, that definitely is a good sign that you're on the right track.
Exactly. And it is not everyone has the capability or desire to actually do that. Mm-hmm. So, it definitely takes a certain type of person to be cut out for that to begin with, no matter what industry it is, I think.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly.
So let's go back to social media for a bit, because I know with most businesses today, and even just people who want to be influencers, building your brand on social media is a huge thing. And it's something that you've done really well. So can you kind of speak to that a little bit and maybe give out some advice on that aspect?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kind of just give a little bit of background of how I did that. Okay. Perfect. So when I first started my Instagram, it was a personal account and I was private. And the reason why I was private is because I didn't want, anyone to, find me or follow me. And then once I got into real estate, I decided I cannot be private, especially for someone that wants to really immerse myself in the field. I want people to find me. So I decided to not be private anymore. And then I decided to also clean up my Instagram. So a lot of things that I felt weren't appropriate, or I felt oh, that's not really me anymore, or that's just something that I don't want on my personal, Instagram account, because I did keep it as a personal account. I just cleaned up my Instagram. And then I really became intentional with my posts, and I became consistent. So that now I'll start getting into, the kind of tips. So you have to be consistent with your posts and your stories. You also need to be genuine. So if you're a brand, whether you're, whether you're baking cookies or, you're a fitness, person or whatever it is, or even like a dentist. I follow a lot of boss women, I guess, if you will. And so I love connecting with like entrepreneurs or like women owned businesses.
Right.
And they've done a really great job. And I also look at fashion bloggers and makeup artists to kind of see what they're doing, like the ones who have like 1 million followers. And that's how pretty much I try to like emulate what they're doing, but like in obviously my industry. So just being consistent, be genuine, engaging with your audience, both like on a post and in your stories. And then if you feel, when I've spoken to people, sometimes their setback is that they don't have time. Well, if you don't have time, there's this website. It's called Planoly, Planoly, and you can actually use their website and you can automate your post. So if there's a week that I'm going to be like on vacation, or I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have so many, appointments this week, I'm not going to have time to even think about a post. You can go into the Planoly account and it literally has the calendar right in front of you. You can upload your photos, write the caption, and then you can even tag, you can set the location, you can literally do everything you do on a regular post on your phone. And
That's
so,
perfect.
and it's an app, so you can use it both in your phone or on your desktop.
Okay.
And then if you are, like I said, if you're going back to the whole branding, if you're, a business, well, obviously I'm assuming, you would be a business or entrepreneur, just depends on what it is.
Right.
If you use also like marketing flyers, or would like to create like posts that aren't so much like just about you, which I do encourage you to like, post pictures about you, your family, or your interests. That's the part of being genuine, but also promote your business. You can use Canva. That's like one of my favorite websites ever. I use Canva a lot. I even like create postcards and I send it out to like my clients so I like swear by Canva.
Yeah, Canva is awesome. I use it a lot too, and it's so easy, and it makes you feel like, and you can make something on Canva, and you're like, and like you don't have to be a graphic designer, and all of a sudden you make something.
Right.
Just looks like a professional did it, but I did it.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny. I have a graphic designer that does like my personal stuff for like my branding. And it's funny because like he'll watch my stories and I'm all excited, like, and then I think to myself, oh my gosh, he's probably upset because I'm not using him for this. So
or he's like offended.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, and then 2 more things. Read any articles. So I always like would read articles like what's new or what's going on Instagram or Facebook, just so I can always be up to date with the trends. Because using hashtags, using geolocations is important to like grow your audience. So another thing for someone who doesn't have a huge audience but wants to grow their audience, looking up hashtags and finding people in your specific industry, or even if it's local, get more hyper focused. And look up the hashtags. Like if you're in Ontario, I don't know like Canada very well, but like if you have like little town, your towns or districts and stuff, use those hashtags. And then another thing is I highly definitely don't recommend buying followers. There's a lot of those accounts that, hey, I'll grow your Instagram. Don't do it. Oh my gosh, that will really negatively impact your presence and your branding. So
and I think that doing that too, because I think I was reading something a while ago and it was like Instagram knows when you're buying your followers, and they know when your followers aren't genuine, and that can actually really mess you up with the algorithm and with your reach getting affected too. Because all of a sudden you're going from like 50 followers to like 3,000. Like that's a very suspicious jump in a very short period of time. So like Instagram will notice that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really important, especially if you're growing your brand. You want more exposure. You don't want less exposure. And if that algorithm gets kind of, off track because of the followers that, you bought, or hopefully you didn't.
Right.
Yeah. So you definitely, it's honestly the best way is to grow organically.
Mm-hmm. And it does take a little more time, but it is more authentic. And that way too, you get people who actually will engage with you and will actually be better than having, like, it's better to have a little bit that are more engaged than a lot that are just robots.
Exactly. Yeah. And then those loyal engagers most likely will like your brand. Another thing, some of the influencers that I follow, they do like giveaways. So that can help, like, hey, tag, this post and, share with your friend, whatever, So
Right.
there's different ways to grow it. Like I said, just reading articles and keeping up to date as far as how to grow the audience, but just don't buy.
Yeah. Well, that keeping up to date actually is really important too, because I mean, anybody who's worked even a little bit in social media knows how quickly and how often things change. And even not even just with social media, but with Google, with search engines, with every social media platform, they're constantly changing, and little things impact that algorithm so much that it is really important to stay on top of that and just spend some time like looking at the latest news.
Yep, exactly. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So going back a bit when we were talking about how you did all of these different programs and took all these different courses in school and did all these different things, there's a lot of students out there who are kind of in that same boat where they kind of take something and then they realize it's not for them, and then they try something else out and kind of figuring it out. So can you kind of talk about that experience a little bit and kind of how
Yeah,
that
sure.
helped you?
Yeah, definitely. So, I was always torn. So this is like, I'll just speak from my own experience and like why I went through these different types of positions. So, in my when I was growing up, I always had an idea that I wanted to be very successful. I didn't know how I was going to be successful, but I always envisioned myself like living in a big house and having, like a housekeeper, like, I don't know where I got this idea from. Right. But I always just thought like I was just going to be like a CEO. And then that was like when I was like young, like, elementary, middle school. And then high school came around and I was like, okay, great. Now, I'm going to get slapped with reality really soon. I need to pursue education. And I actually don't come from like a family that we're, highly educated. Fortunately, my dad was like the first generation of like going to college, and he actually pursued education after I was born. So my dad instilled in me that education is really important. So thank God for that. And so I had this idea of like, okay, I want to be a CEO, but then I have to like, have education. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go to school no matter what, because I want to pursue an academic academic was just something that I had to pursue, right? Regardless. Okay. And so when I got into college, I thought, oh, well, I really like counseling, because I was a peer counselor when I was in high school. I was involved in a lot of things when I was in high school, like ASB, which is like the student council. Okay. I was a peer counselor. I was a peer, like a mentor for like freshman girls. So I was very involved in that aspect. And so I figured, okay, I like talking to people. I think counseling is the great way to go. So in doing so, I naturally just started finding and looking for positions while I was, in college that were educational related. And so on top of, pursuing these positions, I also would sometimes have to have two jobs. So when I was in college, I was going to school full time, and one job wasn't enough because, it's unfortunate, like not because I like needed like money or extra money. It was like, I was trying to pay the bills.
Right.
So I had to have at least two jobs. So like I was working during the week after, classes, and then on the weekends. So I had positions, like I said, in education and then in hospitality. And so I did that, and in doing so, I like met a lot of different people. I learned different things. And then I also sometimes, like in the summer when I wasn't in classes and I couldn't, you know, work in college at the college, because I also had a position that was like in the student union or like in the financial aid office.
Okay.
I would pursue like positions just like as administrative type of, assistant, or I would find jobs like at the mall, just so I could have something.
Right.
And so that's kind of like how I built up like these different resumes. And I think just in doing so, I learned a lot about like myself. I learned a lot about what my skills were too, like what my skill set was. And so I don't know if that kind of answered the question, but in doing all those different positions, I knew I wasn't satisfied though. I will say that. Like, I knew that I didn't want to work for someone else. I did know that I liked working with people, but authority, not so much that I had a problem with authority. It was just more of like, I envisioned myself having more, right? And I wasn't satisfied. So that's what I definitely overall learned.
But I think that's helpful because in doing all of that, trying all these and working all these jobs and like doing all these different things. One, of course, like as we talked about before, it gives you the unique set of skills, but at the same time, it does just kind of help you try things and figure out if that's for you. So it's kind of the same thing where if there's maybe a student who is taking a certain major and doesn't really know if they like it, it would kind of be the same thing as them. Maybe I'm going to go and take a couple elective courses in a different field to see if I like that and kind of just slowly test that, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely. I probably wish I would have done that more in college instead of like with the actual like positions.
Instead of just jumping into another program.
Yeah. That's actually the smart way. And I was too scared. Okay, for those, so maybe this will help for the listeners. Because I was already like about maybe a sophomore or junior, and I had pretty much already completed a lot of my like prerequisites for, my major. And I was like, oh, I'm just so close to like finishing, it's too late now. But honestly, like if you are still, not very sure, even if you are that close to, finishing your major, it wouldn't hurt to take an elective or something in a different field if you're still enrolled. That way you can determine, okay, maybe I am, just a few semesters or, what have you away from graduating, but is this really the career I want? Let me just try something else just to see, so I definitely encourage that. It's important to explore and know and do a lot of research, do a lot of shadowing. That really helped me actually in the school counseling program as well. Just shadowing and like I said, even in the beginning of this conversation, like I immersed myself in so many ways in real estate that I had never actually did that in my other career because I wasn't passionate about it. Right.
The shadowing part thing I think is really important to touch on too, because I mean, I've talked to a lot of different students and graduates and alumni in a lot of different fields. And something that almost every single person says at some point in time is find either a mentor or someone you can shadow, whether that is a mentor or not, because that gives you such a huge advantage in figuring out what you want to do and learning more about that career, right?
Right. Absolutely. Hands down. Yeah. You have to. Especially if that's something, you just have to. And even in real estate, I mean, you have to find a mentor or a coach, same thing. So,
definitely. So obviously with all these different jobs and education and stuff, you obviously figured out how to kind of custom tailor your resume and cover letter and stuff like that to these different positions.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that we do talk about a lot is we try to give a lot of advice to students who are graduating soon and kind of in that similar boat where they're starting to put those resumes together. So do you have any kind of tips on that, on kind of tailoring your resume to certain things?
Absolutely. Yeah. So what I did was I would always, and you know what, gosh, it's been a while since I've had to like send a resume. I don't know if things are like a little bit different now, or like if people have gotten more creative towards the end of like my educational career, or like, yeah, or at least finding positions. I heard people would kind of do really unique things to like set themselves apart, but I don't know if that's like something that people do, but if there is, I definitely would research, how to set yourself apart from all the paper resumes that are, going in to, wherever you're going to apply to. But as far as setting, like at least on your resume, it's important just to make sure that you hit the points that they're looking for. That's like one advantage that I would always purposely do. I would look at, okay, what is their job description? Or I would do so much research about the particular company, especially if they might call me. I would just already do the research ahead of time just to cater my resume specifically for them. So that's definitely a huge point that I would say, or highly stress, is just make sure, okay, if you're going to apply to this position, make sure you include what are those things that they're looking for. Make sure you include it in your resume. Highlight, any skills or any type of experience that is somehow relatable to the field. When I was sending out resumes, I don't know if this is still consistent now, but like a page is just enough, right? And then your cover, definitely your cover letter should, be like short and sweet. Like it doesn't have to be so much like information, but definitely hit the points that they're, going to want to see. That way, because there's probably a lot of other people applying for the same position. So you have to somehow stand out. Mm-hmm. So those would be like my tips of advice. And just, again, coming from a background where I did have to like cater my resume to so many different industries, that's basically what I did. I would just research, okay, what are the points, and then just cater it. And sometimes I would use like skills that I learned in like hospitality, even for like an administrative position. So be very creative. I also would ask like my dad or someone else to kind of proofread before I actually like would submit it. And that's something that I absolutely used to hate. I would hate other people reading or, kind of like judging, like, but honestly, I highly recommend, having like a peer or someone or a friend, sister, I don't know, whoever it is, just look over it and just kind of say, okay, does that make sense? Or does that look okay? Just so that way you can get another set of eyes on it. So
absolutely. That proofreading step is so, so key. Because even just one, like I've been on both ends of companies, like applying and hiring, and I've seen so many resumes come through, and it's like one run through Grammarly would have helped you fix this, and I just like I can't stand seeing like minor typos on it. It's just it just looks so bad. So that's
absolutely. And it actually kind of shows the kind of character behind, who that person is. Like, were they just trying to do this fast? Like, do they even care about, And so I can totally relate. And you definitely don't want to submit something and you totally missed out because of an error.
Right. And it kind of implies that you didn't want to go that extra mile and just put that little bit of extra effort in. And you probably that would make me think that you just fired off your resume to a bunch of different companies just hoping for a job. And like, that's not really the right thing to do.
Right. Absolutely.
So definitely agree on that. Going back to when you were talking about all these different things you did when you were in school and working all these different jobs and being involved in a lot of counseling things and stuff like that. How did you balance all of that? because that's really time consuming on top of all of your studying and all of your just meeting all of your program requirements. So did you kind of develop any like routines or anything like that to help you manage your time and stay on track with studying?
Yeah. So, I didn't do, I guess I did it intentionally. As a freshman, I purposely would schedule all my classes like in the morning.
Okay.
That way I could have the afternoons, like my classes would start either at 7 or 8, and I'd be done with all my classes like around 2 or 3. And then I could head out to, I could work. Well, I worked on campus. And then I would work from like, I don't know, let's just say 2 to 5 or 2 to 6. And then depending what days, then, it was like 6 to 8 at another job or the weekends. So I usually would try to work Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, I would, if I had like a sales job, I would try to work weekends. And then always have like the evenings to either like try to study, and then also use the weekends also for studying and exams. But yeah, I think that was pretty much how I really just focused and carved out all my time, was just being very focused and very intentional on the classes. Like if I couldn't take that class at that time, then I'll wait for the next semester, but I would never have a gap in my schedule. Like I was always, from 8 to 2, and there were only very seldom times where I would take like an evening class if it was like a major prereq, or it was like, okay, this class is only offered once a year. Okay, fine, But I was very intentional in that aspect, that I wouldn't have my classes all over the place. Like when I would talk to my peers, they're like, oh, I have this class at this time, and I'm like, oh my God, that just sounds awful to me. And I don't know if you remember me saying I'm very OCD, like about like schedules. So like timing and everything, like I have to know like, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm here. Tuesday, Thursday, I'm here, because I was on a quarter system. So we were taking classes, in a crammed amount of time. But yeah, so just figuring out your schedule and just making sure it's really consistent. And then if you are working, try to balance, okay, are you going to work in the evenings, or are you going to work in the mornings and then have classes in the evenings? And then the weekends, can you at least sacrifice at least one day, a Saturday or Sunday where it's just, just focus on your homework and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Did you use any kind of like a calendar or some kind of like app or something like that to help you with that?
Ooh, oh my gosh. I'm like, okay, let me show you.
Okay.
I've always had a planner.
Right.
Yeah. So I literally like swear by planners. And that was something that like I learned early on, like in elementary. But yeah, I love planners. I have to have them now because we're more technology driven. I still write because I'm a visual person and I like writing things. I'm more traditional or like old school that way, I guess. But I actually start using like my Google Calendar to help me. But if there's apps out there, I highly recommend, like for those students, because you guys are more like tech savvy. You need to see like, what your schedule is. And that's so, so important. I would always have everything written down. I would always write down like when my exam was, when test days were, when papers were due, when I had to work, so yeah, definitely highly, highly encourage you to use some kind of planner.
That's actually funny because I have a planner sitting beside me too.
Yay! Yeah,
so definitely get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I know like there are a lot of apps and stuff out there that can like automate it for you and put your notifications, but there is something completely different and to me more effective in writing everything down in like old school in a planner and just looking at it and having it sit there on my desk and being able to cross stuff off.
Yes, absolutely. I think I agree with you. Yeah. It's more like if you were to ask me like, next week, And I think I literally am more of like, I'm like, not that I have a photographic memory, but I'm like, okay, I wrote that down on Friday. Yes, I have like an 11 a.m. or, or I have a 2:30 appointment, So yeah, I feel like I remember things more when I write it down.
Well, that's actually a note-taking thing too, is if you write something out by hand, there's something about, like, I don't know exactly the science, but something about it helps you memorize things a lot better when your muscles actually, like, your brain tells your muscles to write it out.
Yeah.
It's something that makes like memory.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And like, even when I was in university, like, I wrote all of my notes out by hand and wrote them all down. And then sometimes I'd go home and just type them up later, or sometimes I didn't, but I wrote everything by hand. I was like the only one in my classrooms that didn't have a laptop, but it worked.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was always like at the front of my class writing notes. They would have like the PowerPoint, and I was like, no, I have to write it. Yeah, yep. I can relate.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts after a while, but
yeah.
Especially when you're like furiously trying to write down everything trying to catch everything the professor's saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it works, and I always recommend that to everybody. So
absolutely.
Definitely. What are there any other kind of challenges or obstacles that you faced when you were in school and balancing all of this stuff, or just in school in general?
Yeah, no, that's actually a really great question. It was almost like a tongue twister.
Yeah.
Yeah. And without getting into like major details, and I don't want to like, upset any like the listeners or audience, but I actually did have a very troubling like personal life going on. So again, without going into too much detail, my mom and my stepdad, right at the point where I was entering into college, so I just graduated high school, they both lost their jobs. And it wasn't because it wasn't because there was like this problem with the economy, although that was happening, right? They actually lost their jobs due to addictive substance abuse behaviors, which I had no idea. While I was like a couple of years right before I graduated, I didn't know that they had started using drugs or abusing drugs. And 2 years later, they lost their, like my mom had a business, she lost it. My stepdad was an employee for a really great company for like over 20 years. So from 18 to about 28 years old, I was dealing, and during that whole time, I mean, I graduated when I was 22. And then I, pursued higher education, up until I was 26 years old. So from 18 to 26, during that whole college experience, I was having to deal with, my mom and my stepdad, like using drugs, and I would cry into them and having to worry like what's going on. I have a younger sister I'm 12 years older than her. I'm not joking. When I was in class, there were a couple times, and one time I remember like vividly, I was in my grad program, and my sister kept calling me, and I thought to myself, okay, it's kind of very odd that she's calling me more than once. So I stepped outside, and she was crying hysterically about, a situation that it was an altercation between our parents. And I was like, oh my God. And it was then, it was things like that I had to worry about in the back of my mind. So having to kind of like balance like the personal struggles, like was really hard. And I think honestly, like, education was like probably the only stable thing in my life. And so was like the jobs that I had. And so I think I just tried to immerse myself as much as I could. And just like, it was almost like I would put so much focus and energy into that and try to like forget what was going on, with my home life. So, yeah.
Well, I was just gonna, like, that must be so hard to deal with when you're in university, because I mean, it's one thing when you hear about, I mean, if their kid's going through that kind of struggle, but when you're the child and your parents going through that kind of struggle, I can't even imagine how stressful and hard that could be, especially while you're in university.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely stressful. It was definitely hard. Actually, I mean, right now we're around the holidays. I used to despise and hate the holidays because I just wanted my family to be normal again, and it was just really hard. But thank God, like I had my dad, but he lives like about 400 miles. So he lives in San Francisco, Oakland area. He
Okay.
lives in the Bay. And I could never see myself moving up there. He would always tell me, Danielle, move up here, move up here. And I was like, no, Dad, like my family, like, my mom and my sister are here. And like, I'm very close with them. And although my mom was going through her battles and challenges, like I needed to be there for my younger sister.
Right.
And so I would always have, conversations with my dad, and he definitely, I would say he like was always like my rock as far as like, needing to confide in him. And cause he was the only one that I could really trust,
Right.
that I, can tell me, and also with his wisdom, and I didn't I would never tell like my friends or peers, like what was going on, like I almost was like embarrassed, and then I didn't think that they could relate, and it was
Right.
just something that I didn't want to talk about, so.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think, I mean, if anything, that's kind of, um, at least you did have those things to kind of help you. Like you had school to focus on, so you could kind of like uh, put yourself, get just a little bit of an escape, but that's still productive. So you're still doing, and then that you did have at least someone there to talk to, even if it
Right.
wasn't like, even if you don't want to talk to like a friend or anything, like at least there is that something, because that's important too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the takeaway that I would say for like your listeners is that, that was my experience. I'm sure there are a lot of people who have just they're going through something, right? That is
Hmm.
outside of, just your normal, academic challenges. Like we all have personal lives, we all have families, or we all have something that we're dealing with internally or externally with, that's again outside of academics. And I think the most important thing is just, finding your outlet, whether it's like journaling, whether it's, having someone that you can confide in. But like, don't lose focus. Like, I think the academic part is just so important, and you don't want to like get off track. Although, I don't blame those people who, things just happen, and
Hmm.
like, like, even loss, right, of someone that can really throw you off track. But hopefully in due time, whatever it is that you're going through, like just get back on track. Like, you've done your education up to a certain point, and you might as well, just continue on. It's so important for a reason. You started it for a reason, so it's important for you to finish it. So
Yeah.
um and mhm.
So I was just gonna say, I think that's also super relevant right now with everything going on with the pandemic.
Yeah,
Because that's a lot of outside stress that a lot of people that's causing a lot of people to have mental issue, or not mental issues, but mental health struggles. And that is something that also we can't control
yes, yeah,
individually.
absolutely.
So I think that's also just a relevant point to be talking about right now too.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. I think it's really important just to find, like I said, just finding your outlet, whether if it's working out, journaling, find something to kind of just keep you in a more positive spirit. It's not good to dwell on things. It's not good to focus on negative. Yeah, otherwise you could go down like a dark path, and that is something that you need to stay away from, especially if you have like family prone to like, depression. I mean, there are high rates of depression just across, from even starting at young ages, and it's really unfortunate. And so just trying to find something that kind of makes you happy, whether it's music, dancing, singing, journaling, looking at quotes, or just try to always focus on the positives, whatever those positives are, even the small ones.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all part of that self-care thing too, like making sure that you do take those time to do things you enjoy or just things that help you de-stress, whatever it is, just to have that there. Because that's a big problem that a lot of university students face, especially in their first year when they're coming from high school to university too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So definitely
Self-care.
something good. Yeah. Self-care, definitely. On a more happier note, what is one of your favorite memories from your time in school?
Oh boy, gosh, what was my favorite memory? Honestly, I think probably one of my favorite like memories, and it's more of just the more of a whole and like not a specific one, is actually working in the financial aid office. So when I was doing my undergrad or finishing my undergrad, I worked in the financial aid office. So like I said, I would go to class and then, work in the financial aid office. And that actually was like a highlight because it was there that I got to connect with like my peers. And I also got to learn from some of the women that were, like they were the advisors or, they were like the program administrators, right? And so that's kind of like where I had like more of the human connection. Cause like when I would go to class, I literally would just go to class, learn, maybe meet a couple friends for like, to study or if we had to like do a project together. But other than that, I was, very focused. And so I would say the financial aid office is where probably it was more of like my fun time where I got to like, kind of just be laid back, feel like a student, and actually a lot of the girls that I went to college with, I have to use the word friends loosely, but like we are still in touch or, through social media and stuff. Right. And so, yeah, so I would say working on campus, I guess.
It sounds fun. And like, if you're going to get a job, like a part-time job like that while you're in school, like that's probably one of the best places for a student to be because you still have that responsibility of having that job. But then you also, you get to see your friends and you get to talk to people or maybe even meet new people on campus.
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
A win-win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So one question we always ask is if you could go back and talk to your 15-year-old self, what would you say or what kind of advice would you give?
Oh gosh, that is such a great question. And if I could talk to my 15-year-old self, I would tell my 15-year-old self to not let what I think what other people, don't let other people, gosh, I'm not even saying it right. Don't focus on what other people think about or care about. I think I put a lot of emphasis on how I do things or how I did things like on what people care about or what people think. And I should have just always followed like my own heart and not please anyone else. I think there are things that I wanted to prove to like, like my dad or to like my peers. And that was just a waste of time, a waste of energy. And it's more of just do what you feel in your heart. Mm-hmm. That's always the best way.
That makes total sense. And I think it applies to, because I think every person has gone through that when you're in high school or when you're a teenager and you just kind of, you're so fixated on what everyone else is doing, what everyone wants you to do that you kind of just forget to stop and just think about what you want. I know that happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, had I gone after what I wanted, things would be different. But again, I'm very fortunate. Maybe I wasn't ready for it then. I think everything happens for a reason. But I think it's so important. It wasn't until like later in life where, that I realized, oh my gosh, Danielle, do what you want, do what makes you happy. And it took me like into my late 20s to realize, like the light bulb went on and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what have I been doing? And I just wish I had followed and pursued those things early on, but
Yeah.
if you have, even if you have that now, just hold on to it,
Yeah, definitely.
or find it.
Yeah. Or just give yourself the chance to search for what you want.
Right.
Is there anything that kind of was kind of like something you'd consider like the key to your success when you were in school? Like anything you kind of did that was like, oh, I'm so glad I thought to do that.
Oh, that's a really great.
It's okay if you don't have an answer either.
Yeah. I think I guess my key to success was it was more of dedication and like the persistence, right?
Okay.
I think it's more because I had a strong will to complete my academic education. And I think that was like a major key to success, as far as like that was able to help me complete my education while I was dealing with all those challenges, while I was having to like 2 or 3 jobs,
Right.
At one point. Is just having that strong will that I was, I'm going to get my education. I'm going to finish my degree. My bachelor's was definitely like hands down, I had to. That was just something innately that I, like had to do. And there was nothing that was going to stop me. So I think just having, a strong will. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
And that's also that entrepreneurial spirit coming into, I think. Just that dedication.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I'm going to do this.
Yep, absolutely.
Definitely. Another thing we kind of ask everyone is if you have a favorite motivational quote that you would like to share.
Well, I'm going to tip my computer. I have like a few behind me, and then I have like 2,000 quotes saved on my phone. So I'll read probably one behind me because
okay.
Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay. Your potential is endless. Go created what you were to do. Go do what you were created to do. Sorry. Let me do that again.
Okay.
Your potential is endless. Go do what you were created to do.
Perfect. I mean, that is also another super, going back to that being driven and motivated, that entrepreneurial spirit, just do it and see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's another one behind me. It's dreams demand hustle. So whatever your dream is, whatever those hopes and goals that you have, it's not going to just appear in front of you. I had all these dreams, but I wasn't like putting them into action. And it wasn't until like I was like, whoa, this is hard. This is what hard work is, or, and that word hustle, sometimes it has like a negative, connotation, but honestly, it's more of just like put in that work, and, you will reap the benefits of all that hard work, all the sacrifices, the time that you're, sacrificing, the calculated risks, all that comes into play, and your dreams definitely will start coming true. So,
and everything takes hard work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything. So I just have one more question, and it's another fun question that we ask people. And I think I already know the answer, but what is your favorite social media platform and why?
Oh, yeah, that would be Instagram.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah. So I love Instagram. It's definitely my go-to. And the reason why is because well, number one, it's probably because I have the most followers on there. But I actually have fun with it. I love being creative. I love to engage with it. And I love that you have different ways to connect with your audience. I love that they have, you could do posts. I love that the stories are on there. I love that you can save the highlights. I love that you can do IGTV. I love that they, have the reels. There's just so many like fun things to do with it. And it's just about being creative. It's about, just being yourself, and just get your followers to engage and really shine your, genuineness and your own personality through your social media, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, or YouTube, Twitter,
whatever it is. Do you want to drop your Instagram handle here, and we can put it in the description as well so people can follow you?
Yeah, definitely. So my Instagram is my first name, Danielle, DANIELLE _Angelique. That is ANGELIQUE.
Perfect. Yeah, so we'll put that in the description as well. So then, like I said, people can follow you and see your posts.
Perfect. Yeah, if any of your listeners ever, if you guys do follow me, feel free to reach out. I always respond to DMs or if I posted something on my story, you see something I'm very happy to engage and ask me anything if it's more further about real estate or my personal experiences or, education. So more than happy to help.
Super helpful. So that's, before we kind of wrap up, is there any kind of last insights that you want to share that maybe we didn't cover yet, just before we say goodbye?
No, I think we covered it all. I think the only thing, I guess if I were to say one last thing, whether it's real estate or being an entrepreneur, I highly encourage you to do so if it's something that you feel very passionate about. Don't worry about what other people think. Don't be analytical. Sometimes I get analytical. Sometimes I think too much about certain things. Just go do it. Do it. If it's something that you have already thought about, you want to just try it, do it. So I guess that's the thing that I would probably just leave with is don't even care what other people think. And in fact, you might have some people that might tell you not to do it. Oh my God, do not listen to them. If anything, just go for it. Don't listen to the haters out there.
Amazing. I think that is a really inspiring place to leave off on. So I do want to thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to talk to us today and share all your amazing insights. I think that it was super inspiring talking to you. So we really do appreciate it. And I think this is going to be a really great podcast episode.
Yay! Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for reaching out. I am very humbled and very happy to, that you invited me on your show. So I really appreciate it. And I hope your listeners, got some value out of it. So.
They definitely will. So thank you. And we will also be in touch with you as well.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Bye.